Hi everyone. This week I read a book called High Fidelity by Nick Hornby, and I just wanted to talk about the book a little bit because I liked it a lot, but I also wanted to talk about the role of fiction and literature in, uh, I suppose, worldly education or just being a well-rounded person in general. When I was perhaps 12 or 13, I remember asking my dad what what made reading so virtuous compared to other art forms, like watching TV, like I liked to do when I was a teenager, for example. So it's basically just a story being conveyed either by reading or by watching it. And he said that he he thought that reading conveyed a certain empathy to the reader. So when you read about someone's experiences in a book, even if they're fictional, that you would somehow expand your mind to include those experiences as, I mean, this isn't exactly what he said, but it's kind of what I'm thinking about now, is how you include these characters after you spend a few hours reading about a certain character. You start to include them as part of your own mind in a strange sort of way, and if they're written properly, you can properly recognize them as a human being. And when he said that, I wasn't really convinced. I thought that my dad was just trying to get me to read, and I was a little bit skeptical. But I think the I think the reason I didn't know what he meant really was that when I was that age, I wasn't reading proper literature or real grown-up books. I was reading, Harry Potter or a series of unfortunate events, kind of young adult fiction, which is a really good stepping stone to reading proper books, and they're great entertainment, just like watching a film or playing a video game or watching TV is entertainment. But I think there is something about well-written fiction that does make you a better person in the way that my dad thought. And I was really thinking about that when reading High Fidelity, because I felt such a strong feeling that I was I was learning something about humanity by reading it, and not just about humanity and life, but specifically about gender. There's a kind of knowledge that you can't get from your own life. You can only have so many experiences in one lifetime, and I think a book like High Fidelity, it really feels like I've lived those experiences now that I've read about them, and that does seem kind of bizarre to me. And I don't know why I should feel so strongly about a book that was later adapted into a film with Jack Black and John Cusack, rather than about some very famous books that I've read, like 1984 or Brave New World, proper literature. Lord of the Flies, to an extent, made me feel a little bit like this, like I was learning about life. But um, maybe it was just because it's so personal. It's not the High Fidelity doesn't say anything about politics or about economics. It doesn't say anything about society at large. It's just a story about one man and his relationship uh, to the women in his life. I'm sure you've all had this experience of talking to someone who knows a lot but doesn't really understand anything or doesn't understand much. You can know lots of things and be very clever, and have lots of knowledge and know lots of facts and statistics, and those certainly go some way to describing the world. But if you don't have a proper understanding of human beings and about relationships and the little things that make up just life, I don't really see, there's going to be something missing. And that's how I can't help feeling when I see these men going their own way, talking on YouTube and talking in comment sections about marriage and about women. And I think, yeah, probably the things you're saying are correct, and uh, there really is a problem with men and women at the moment, and equality, and you know, same thing with feminists. I mean, there's stuff that definitely needs to be talked about, but I get a sense from, well, I get the sense from feminists as well. I don't want to be unfair. There's a lot of online arguments in general, no matter what you're arguing about. It's very common to see people who, as I say, know a lot, but I feel like don't understand exactly what they're saying. Or maybe that's just my way of saying I don't agree with them, but maybe you know what I'm talking about and you could tell me. Maybe you could tell me what I'm trying to say, or if you have this experience. But I think it's called wisdom, right? That knowledge that isn't it's not a fact. You're not teaching a fact, and you can't even express it in words. If you tried to tell someone, if I tried to tell you right now what I learned from reading High Fidelity, I couldn't, because it's too complicated. And the film adaptation doesn't even get it right, although it is pretty true to the book, and it's a great film, by the way. You can't. The reason that it's a book is that you can't learn it any other way, other than to read it or to live it. You know, I'm sure that the author, Nick Hornby, is like, this book seems so real to me that I feel like scenes or whole parts of this book must have been lifted directly from his life. It's just so brutally realistic in detail and its honesty, and I'm sorry I can't recommend to you a more highbrow book about gender or about life. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get you to read Dostoevsky or Tolstoy. When I like something, I can't choose what I like and what I don't like, and I hope to become a more mature reader in the future and read great novelists. Like I'm reading a Dostoevsky novel at the moment, actually, so maybe I'll tell you about that when I read it. I'm afraid there's not much I can say, except that I think that everyone should read this book. I recommend it to pretty much anyone, although maybe not to there might be some people who are too young for it, but I don't think any of those people are watching this channel, so I don't have to worry about that. I think it's a brilliant book, and if you're too lazy to watch, if you can't bother to read the book, if you don't have time to read the book, maybe you should just watch the film, because there's a lot in that film as well. A lot of this is in there. I once watched a film on that was airing on TV called You've Got Mail, with starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and it was probably one of the worst films I've ever seen that was a proper film, not some cheap crap thing, but an actual proper motion picture that was in cinemas and had very famous actors in it. It was the absolute antithesis of High Fidelity, I think. I can't describe to you the exact way in which is bad, but it's extremely false. It rings false, and I didn't even watch it as a mature adult. It was probably, I might have been 16 or 17 when I watched it, maybe even younger, and it was just, I didn't have any romantic experience, but I knew that it was fake and bad. I can't sit here and tell you what love is and what love isn't, and what a good relationship is and what a good relationship isn't. All I can say is that I hope that you have found it out for yourself in your life, and even if you have, I think you could probably learn something from reading High Fidelity. I think it's packed with wisdom. Quick bonus review. I also read La Belle Sauvage, the book of, from the Book of Dust series, which is the sequel to his Dark Materials, or the Golden Compass series, also known as the Northern Lights, I think was what it was released as originally. If you've read that original trilogy, or if you haven't, either way I would recommend La Belle Sauvage. It was great, and if you want to listen to the audiobook, the guy who read it was phenomenal. He was amazing. It's a great book, great audiobook. Again, it didn't hit me as hard as High Fidelity, but it did have a little bit of that wisdom that I'm talking about, and it was just a great adventure story. So that's 2 books. High Fidelity, a definite recommend from me, and La Belle Sauvage, recommend if you like either his dark materials or fantasy in general, or if you just want to read a good book. Sorry, this is my normal style of video. I feel there's something important to say here, although I don't think I've expressed it very well, but I wanted to get away from talking so much about, just socialism and economics. That's not what I wanted this channel to be when I started it. I didn't set out to be controversial or right-wing. Alright, thank you for watching. If you have read the books that I've recommended, or if you feel like you are going to read them, then please drop me a message if you read them, and let me know if you like them or what you think about them. I'd love to talk about these 2 books, especially High Fidelity, which I haven't met anyone who's read it, so I'd love to talk to someone about it at least. I'll see you soon. Bye. And it was absolutely terrible. I frequently think back to it as